Can you actually hear me? We're starting without a wait video this time because one of you bitched about it. I'm sorry. I don't have a fucking intern. It's hard to do all of this at once. But as we get this thing ramped up, you know what I'm going to do? Now I'm going to post to socials. And you don't have to see a standby video. Okay? And guess what? You also don't have to hear elevator music. Is that nice? Is that something you'd like? Isn't this impressive filibustering as I multitask right now? Because I got to post this to Twitter. And I got to post this to Facebook. And that's kind of annoying. But, man, I'm pretty damn good at absent-mindedly talking with not a care in the world. One last thing to do. I've just got to update the thumbnail so I can trick some people into diving into this live stream. You know, that's how it's done, people. You know, when you ain't a big deal, when you're just some rando sports talk show host who's been canned from a couple of radio stations, who's trying to survive in a dying industry, this is how you do it. So, for that one person who was upset about the hold video, look, we did this. Exo Chimera on youtube.com/Paul Gallant says, just hire me to do that for you. I got you. Bitch, I am poor. You think I can afford that? If I could afford that, I would do it. That's for damn sure. What should I do as a side job? Uber, Lyft, Bagger. Anyway, hello and welcome aboard the Gallant Says podcast. It is Thursday night, September 7th of 2023. You can watch this live at youtube.com/Paul Gallant. You can also watch it live at twitch.tv/Gallant Says. You also could be listening to this on September 8th, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. GallantSays@gmail.com if you ever have a question. Randy asks this. Hey, Paul, is it true that you know two people who will be on Love is Blind Season 5? Yes, in fact, it is. In a depressing note, one of the people that's on Love is Blind Season 5 is someone I went on a couple of dates with. You're going to have to watch the show. I don't want to blow up her spot or anything like that. I will say the trailer for Love is Blind Season 5 featuring her, they pulled a clip and she does seem a tad insufferable. I actually don't think she's insufferable. I thought she was awesome. Beautiful woman. Doesn't like drinking. Not a good thing for me. But I still was going for it. Eventually, I think I got the, oh yeah, we're just not a match. And I can understand why. Still bummed out about it. The other, holy shit, smoking hot. I think ex-cheerleader. But her fucking dog, she's not a very good dog owner. Fucking dog jumps all over everybody. It's a cute dog, so like you're letting the dog do it. But her dog ruined my pants one day. I'm out and about, I'm looking fly. Got some white pants on. I do like to wear white pants a lot. The dog got paws all over my shorts, and there you go. All right, guys, we're going to talk about the Texans' Week 1 game against the Ravens in a second. I want more people to get in here before we do it. I do want to talk first, though, about what we saw in the Thursday night opener between the Detroit Lions and the Kansas City Chiefs. First off, bravo to the Detroit Lions. I think there's a lot of people going into this year who thought they were bullshit. I was on the fence on whether or not they were bullshit last year. It's really hard to take a team seriously that has Jared Goff as a head coach, and there is an element of Dan Campbell that's a little bit much at times. I like Dan Campbell. Seems like he would be a good guy to hang out with, but every now and then you're like, okay, we get it. We don't have to have a fucking speech from a sports movie in every single press conference, every single time you talk. You don't need to tear up, but they deserve a lot of credit. Now, Kansas City obviously not at 100%. Travis Kelce didn't play in the game. And, man, the Chiefs receivers were limited. We'll get to that in a moment. And no Chris Jones either, who was at the game. We'll talk about him too. But I think the Lions deserve a lot of credit there. They showed balls And this is one of the things that you got to do in today's NFL. It's one of the reasons I'm really happy the Texans moved on from Lovie Smith. You can't be conservative. I got to say, the Lions going for it on, 4th and 3, 4th and 4, first drive of the game, inside their own 20. I mean, that is a batshit crazy move. And had that not worked out, it is a move that would be very, very criticized. Maybe as much as that attempt to go for it by the Chiefs on 4th and 25 was crazy. Didn't have a very high probability of succeeding there. And even then, Mahomes almost pulled it off. But anyway, the Lions go for it on 4th down inside their own 20. Later in the game, it's almost 2 minutes left to go. They go for it on 4th down again, up just 1 point. They don't play the conservative thing like a lot of coaches across the NFL do. They went for the win. I respect them for doing that. That's what you got to do against a team that's led by Patrick Mahomes, even if they don't have Travis Kelce. Hell, they got a pick 6 of Patrick Mahomes. Now, that again had to do with the wide receivers, but there were lots of Lions fans there. Aren't you happy that Aiden Hutchinson, too, who had 3 quarterback hits of Mahomes, is a Detroit Lion and not a Jacksonville Jaguar? What the fuck were they thinking? And look, maybe Travon Walker will be good someday, but sometimes the simple pick at the top of the draft is the easy pick. Aiden Hutchinson could be a Jacksonville Jaguar. Instead, they got Travon Walker, and I mean, we'll see if that guy does anything this year. Let's take a look at some of the comments here. YouTube.com/Paul Gallant. Person telling me Exo Chimera is saying, white pants, that's a no-no. No, white pants are good. White pants are good. Y'all ain't bold like me. Rick Hagwood says, if the Lions can pull one out of the hat with a badass defense, so can we. Well, here's the thing. We got to figure out if the Texans have a badass defense. Nice handle. Huge anus says wins are wins. Thanks for the very succinct, basic point. Exo Chimera said, they asked Goff how he felt giving the ball back to Mahomes with 2:30 left. And he said, not today. The cockiness. The Lions deserve to be cocky. You know, as far as fan bases across the NFL go, Lions fans are about as harmless as it gets. One of my old producers, when I was working for the Sports Map Radio Network back in 2019, in between my jobs at Sports Radio 610 in Houston and 710 ESPN Seattle in Seattle, obviously, there was this producer I had for the Sunday football games, football coverage that we would do. His name was Brendan Riley. He's off to Chicago now. Diehard Lions fan. They're such a harmless fan base, though. And you can't help but laugh at just how harmless and hapless things have been for them for all of this time. But I'm happy for the Lions. I'm happy for Lions fans. And credit to the Lions fans who had the balls to go down to Kansas City to show up for an opening night game, just giving the Lions an entire history. Okay, what's the reason, the biggest reason that the Chiefs lost this game? It's that you got to have pass catchers in today's NFL. And not having Travis Kelce, that hurts. But you look at the Chiefs receiver corps, Sky Moore is somebody that they invested draft capital in. I forget off the top of my head where Sky Moore was drafted. Hang on, let me look that up really quickly. Sky Moore... now all of a sudden ESPN is acting like Sky Moore's page doesn't exist. Did he just get deleted from the internet because he wasn't able to make a couple of catches? But from what I remember, Sky with 2 Ys, his parents didn't do him any solids there. Sky Moore is a 2nd-round pick. Kadarius Toney, the receiver that they brought in from the New York Giants, a former 1st-round pick from 2020. Those guys were fucking dreadful. And they're players that the Chiefs put some serious capital into. And you're thinking Patrick Mahomes can turn water into the best possible line. But those 2 guys stunk it up. And honestly, the Lions had some bad receiving as well. There was a stretch where Josh Reynolds looked good. And obviously, Amon-Ra St. Brown is the best receiver on the field in this game. But man, you got to have pass catchers. And I know I'm reverting back to my old Sports Radio 610 tactics here, but to bring it back to the Texans, I mean, I'm pretty nervous about the receivers that CJ Stroud's going to be working with this year. Because, okay, with the Chiefs, Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, you can't put too much stock into where a player's drafted, when a player's drafted, but those guys should be good. And Mahomes couldn't make anything work with them. And the Lions have Amon-Ra St. Brown. The Texans have the artist formerly known as Robert Woods, who I hope is going to be able to be the guy that he was a couple of years ago, but let's see it first before we start getting excited. There's Nico Collins. It's year 3. Usually the big jump from a receiver comes from year 1 to year 2. Maybe Pep Hamilton sucked a lot and is the reason for all of the Texans' issues last year's. But maybe it was Davis Mills too. And then after that, what is it, Noah Brown? Is Tank Dell even going to play? We haven't seen him at all in the preseason. I don't know that the Texans are saving him for the first game of the regular season like some are saying. I think there might be some deference being given to a veteran wide receiver and how difficult it is to pick up an NFL offense when you first get into the league and with limited practice time now during the offseason. But, I mean, tonight, or if you're listening this morning, last night, there was some bad receiving in Lions-Chiefs. And I'm thinking about the Texans wide receivers in this one. Some more comments here. Prophet D, what about the Chiefs right tackle? One call in the game and that's it. Yeah, that was some bullshit. I saw Seth Payne complaining about some of the holds that the Chiefs offensive line was getting away with. I think the Lions are probably doing it as well. Holds happen on just about every single play. But yeah, it's pretty crazy that it took until that 4th down and 20 for them to call Jawan Taylor for clearly cheating with a false start on every single snap. That's something the refs got to be held accountable for. Will they actually be held accountable for it? I don't know about that. Exo Chimera says Toney can't catch. No, he cannot. My goodness. And I mean, at least there was one play where he might have gotten distracted by a receiver crossing in front of him, but man. Rick Hagewood, as far as drop passes by our starting wide receivers. Yeah, we've seen a lot of that in the preseason. That's sort of what I'm thinking about here. CJ puts the ball on the spot. CJ has been very accurate. That, at the very least, is exciting. Anyway, more stuff to take away from this Thursday Night Football game. I am a big fan of Chris Jones. Chris Jones did not play. Chris Jones is being criticized by a lot of people online, specifically Chiefs fans, for being selfish and not suiting up in this game. There's a life lesson to take from this. The bosses are always going to try and fuck you over in life. No matter where you work, no matter who you are, bosses are going to try to screw you over. It's what they do. It's how they get to the top of the totem pole. Unless you're talented enough. And yeah, life is a meritocracy. Sometimes the people who determine said meritocracy aren't exactly with it. We've all been in a situation like that. I like to think I've been in a situation like that with a couple of radio stations, but perhaps I am the problem, seeing as I'm on to my 3rd one. But if you're talented enough, you can do whatever the fuck you want. I don't know if Chris Jones is the reason that the Chiefs lost tonight. The Lions ran 34 times for 118 yards. A little bit too much David Montgomery for my taste. I would have liked to see a little more Jahmyr Gibbs, but that's largely due to fantasy reasons. Also, I started Kadarius Toney. What the fuck was I doing? Sorry, that's a side tangent. Chris Jones wants to get paid. He just saw what Nick Bosa got paid, which was a shit ton of money. And he probably realizes that he's worth that because he's one of the best defensive linemen in the league. Defensive linemen, they should get paid. So Chris Jones goes to the game. He's not being selfish. He has leverage because he's talented. If you actually in life legitimately have that talent, and again, it takes a little bit of confidence to have the ability to actually stand up to your bosses and stuff like that. But Jones obviously has that confidence in himself. He also has a very highly publicized job where a lot of people can sort of endorse him as being very good at his job. So obviously a little bit different than the real world. But I know player empowerment's annoying, and I know these guys get paid a shit ton of money. But if you are as good as Chris Jones is, and you have the ability to get every single cent that you can, in a league where guys get hurt and banged up, and where these big contracts, a lot of guys don't even see the very end of them. I can't hate on a guy like Chris Jones for doing that. And I guess where some people might. I'm not telling you to feel any type of way. I'm just explaining my perspective. And I don't know, think about it on your own if you see some guy who's holding out and you're like, what the fuck? What's this all about? What else do we got here? Exo Chimera says, I'll never be on the billionaire side. Yes. Money is money. I don't blame Chris Jones. He wants that check. He earned that check. Johnny Lambert, was Jones sitting with the Kansas City executives up there? I don't know. I saw James Palmer report that he's in a suite. The Chiefs knew he was coming, weren't opposed to him being there. That doesn't sound like they invited him to be there. Exo Chimera continues saying, nope, Chris hasn't talked to anyone on the Chiefs for a week and a half. Okay, let's talk about the Texans and the Ravens on Sunday. We'll obviously be talking a little bit more about this on my show, 10 to noon, ESPN 97.5 and 92.5. But I'm not going to be able to post online because we're doing the show from East River 9, which is an awesome place, by the way. Great, 9-hole golf spot. Amazing view of downtown Houston. It's going to be a little hot, but they got really good chicken sandwich. Come on out if you want to say hi. I'll be there for a little bit. The Texans, per mybookie.ag, promo code BET975, get a little deposit bonus if you sign up, are 9.5-point dogs against the Baltimore Ravens, who they will play on Sunday. And I know somebody a little bit earlier in the comments section, youtube.com/Paul Gallant, twitch.tv/Gallant says, if you want to interact with the show live, Sunday nights, Monday through Thursday nights is the schedule planned for now. There was somebody who said a little bit earlier, anything can happen in the NFL, and that is true. So I'm not ruling out the possibility of the Texans upsetting the Ravens on the road. But if you're a rational person, you have no reason to pick the Texans to win. None. You got tons of injuries on the offensive line. So this is what we know about the offensive line right now. There's going to be a Talkin' Texans podcast with me and DJ Bieneme of ESPN where we talk about some of these issues for the offensive line. But what DJ told me was that at left tackle, you got Laramie Tunsil. That's obvious. At left guard, you have Josh Jones. Josh Jones was a right guard for the Cardinals in 2021. He was listed as an offensive lineman in 2022. He's played tackle, so he has at least had versatility over the course of his career. I'm not going to look at the Pro Football Focus shit. I feel like it's always tough to gauge whether or not an offensive lineman's good when he's moving all over the place. The fact that he has been versatile in the past is definitely good, but 21 starts, 3 years in his career, a former third-round pick. All those starts are coming the last 2 years. He's playing left guard. I mean, I suppose it might actually be better than Kenyon Green, given the way things had started off this year for Kenyon Green, not just due to the injuries and whatever the hell else was going off the field. But he's your left guard. Center, your 6th-round rookie, Jarrett Patterson from Notre Dame, is there, so that's concerning. It's not Scott Quessenberry. It's not your 2nd-round pick, Juice Scruggs, who's dealing with the hamstring injury. Right guard, you got Shaq Mason, thank God. Right tackle, you got George Fant, who I like. I think there's a YouTube video up somewhere from 2019 of George Fant and I playing NBA 2K. I had a lot more of a beard. I had a lot less hair on top. Thank you, Propecia. But Fant's played well before for the Jets. He's a pretty good swing tackle as a backup. Fant I'm not as concerned about, but I am concerned about Josh Jones, and I am concerned about Jarrett Patterson. And here's why I'm concerned about the interior of the offensive line before we get into some of the other reasons why you shouldn't pick the Texans on Sunday, no matter how diehard of a Texans fan you are. Think about this if you're an offensive lineman, and specifically if you're a center. You are in charge of communicating with the offensive lineman to your left and to your right. And because of the way that the offensive line is set up, just think about it from a physics perspective and a sound perspective. The center can turn to his left and turn to his right because he's ahead of the guards and he's ahead of the tackles, and he can communicate with those guys. So it's always helpful to have a guy at center who is more experienced. Sometimes centers, honestly, of all the offensive linemen, have the least impact on a play during the play. But before the play, you got to call the Mike linebacker. You've got to talk with the other guys around you. And no offense to Jarrett Patterson, who might be good, who knows? But he's a 6th-round rookie. He is going to be on the road in Baltimore, which is one of the loudest places in the NFL. And he is going to be tasked, you would assume, with the shitty task of talking to the guys to his right, talking to the guys to his left, and telling them what they have to do. So in addition to being banged up on the offensive line, the guy in the middle who is communicating with the offensive linemen around him, he's going to have his work cut out for him. And yeah, Shaq Mason to the right at right guard, that's a really experienced player, but it's going to be a lot more difficult for a guy like Shaq Mason to communicate. And say Shaq Mason communicates to Jaret Patterson, who communicates to the guys to his left. It's almost like a game of telephone. That could potentially lead to some delay of games. I think there will be a couple of false starts. I don't think it's going to be a smooth operation for the offensive line, which is why I've got very measured expectations for CJ Stroud in this game. I know some people are going to want to see flashy things and see him throw it all over the yard and stuff, but not just because of the offensive line in front of him or the receivers that we talked about a little bit earlier. There's tons of reasons to say, like, okay, let's just make sure that Stroud gets it through the game alive. So he's going to get hit behind that offensive line, as you would think. I want him to be smart when it comes to plays where he's got no chance. If you got a guy bearing down on you and you can't move, just turtle. I also want to see him make quick decisions when it comes to either throwing the football away or checking it down. These are things I was looking for in the preseason too. If CJ Stroud blows us all away in this game, awesome. Obviously, I'm rooting for that, and I'm not saying he can't do it. I am just saying that if we're being realistic here, I think you just want CJ Stroud to do veteran things. Maybe you want him to play hero ball. Let's wait until the end of the game for that. Don't throw a forced interception like we saw in the Patriots game on that first drive. Don't take a 15-yard sack. Be smart out there and don't get yourself hurt. It's the first game of the year, and he's going to have tons of jitters. I asked him at media availability on Wednesday about how this compares to his first start in college, and I think he feels a little more comfortable than his first start in college. I know he's made reference to the fact that he was competing with Quinn Ewers, and he was a little annoyed that he was competing with Quinn Ewers. So maybe he feels a little more comfortable, but this is going to be a tough one on Sunday. Baltimore, I don't know where I'd rank Baltimore among loud places in the NFL, but I feel like over the last 20 years, just given the consistency of the organization, I always feel like that's a competent team. They have always seemed scarier on defense than they maybe actually are. And it's going to be hard for the Texans offense to move the football. I like Dameon Pierce. I like that they brought in Devin Singletary as a backup. They're going to have to run the ball a lot, and they're going to have to win it that way. Can they do it? Sure. Am I expecting it? No. I think it's going to be a lot of the Ravens just saying, all right, you want to beat us? Rookie quarterback, banged up offensive line, mediocre wide receivers. We're not going to let you run. You got to beat us. If Stroud beats them, holy shit, we're going to be very happy on Monday. Let's take a look at some comments here. YouTube.com/Paul Gallant. Is Dieter being called up from the practice squad? If he is, I doubt it's to play. Rick Hagwood says that Patterson has practiced at Centerell Camp and knows the calls. It's one thing to know the calls in a preseason game where it's not that loud, where you're not going up against complex defensive fronts, masquerades, disguises. It's another thing to do it in a game where it's loud, and it's very, very loud in Baltimore. Exo Chimera says, I think the Ravens will have us pretty locked down. DG Dark 200TH. Let's wait for kickoff, then see how we want him to react. I don't know who you're talking about there, but he says he appreciates my outlook, so I appreciate you for appreciating my outlook. What else do we have here as far as this game? Okay, more reasons to be realistic here. And again, I'm not poo-pooing them. I am legitimately excited about the Texans team. Last year, I wanted to fucking blow my brains out going to games there. That Texans-Titans game, awful. And then I went to the Texans-Brown game just so I could ask Deshaun Watson a question. The fucking PR guy for the Browns pulled some Baghdad Bob shit and wouldn't let me ask a question. Fuck that guy. Anyway, we're fine. We're over it. We're not petty at all. You've got injuries on the defensive side of things too, which is like a fucking course. It's just been a really unfortunate August for the Texans. Blake Cashman had a great training camp, by all accounts. Hasn't practiced this week. He's dealing with a hamstring injury. Hamstring injuries, if you're not practicing with a hamstring injury, odds are you're probably not going to play. So I'm not holding my breath for him. Safety Jimmy Ward, who is essentially your master's graduate from a D'Amico Ryans defense, he's got a hip injury. He hasn't practiced this week. Oh, boy. Now, hip injuries make me nervous when guys get a little bit older. And let me look this up. Jimmy Ward. Am I older than... I am older than Jimmy Ward. Fuck. I'm so old. Jimmy Ward is 32 years old. Hip injuries. I don't like hearing a hip injury for anybody in their 30s. I'm not acting like he's in his 50s or 60s. Help, I'm falling and I can't get up. I just don't like seeing that. He hasn't practiced this week, and linebacker Christian Harris has been limited. So what's the great equalizer here? Because obviously Lamar Jackson's really tough to stop. You heard D'Amico Ryans. I asked him about Lamar Jackson on Wednesday, and he said that he's a very good passer. And the way that he talked about Jackson made it seem like he expects the Ravens to try to throw the football a lot, which makes sense because Todd Monken comes from Georgia. He's the new offensive coordinator. He takes over for Greg Roman. Greg Roman's one of those guys where you're wondering how much he was really developing Lamar Jackson as a passer. So in comes Todd Monken. In comes Odell Beckham Jr. In comes Zay Flowers. Back comes Rashad Bateman from a Liz Frank injury. He was not on the injury report for Baltimore. Mark Andrews already there. On paper, I mean, it's a pretty good group. So you're hoping some of these Ravens don't play. Mark Andrews has a quad injury. The last he was asked about that quad injury, he said he's feeling better and God willing, he'll be out there. I think Andrews is one of the best tight ends in the NFL. I don't think he gets nearly enough praise. I think he's a really good player, big guy, obviously, and Christian Harris is banged up. If Blake Cashman's banged up, I don't know who the fuck the Texans are going to throw at him. And the middle of that defense had issues last year. Those guys were making you feel a little bit better because how much worse could the middle of that defense get? Christian Kirksey really struggled, I thought, last year. But Mark Andrews, I don't know. I don't know what's going to go on there. I don't know who stops him. So you're hoping Andrews is out. And obviously, you don't wish anyone to be injured, but you also don't mind when a guy misses a game due to injury. It's okay to admit that. Odell Beckham Jr. is listed as limited with an ankle injury. He hasn't played in a year and a half, but he had some annoying tweet online, like intimating he'll be fine. I saw it on NFL Reddit. I can't see Odell Beckham Jr.'s tweets because I'm blocked. I think he tweeted something once. It was just so fucking annoyingly deep. And I said, like, wow, so meta, bro. And he tweeted like 5 or 6 responses to me, and then I think he deleted. Then he blocked me, so I actually can't even see it. But look that up. See why Odell Beckham Jr. blocked me. You're hoping that Rashad Bateman's not feeling himself, that Odell Beckham Jr. is not feeling himself, that Mark Andrews can't play, that Zay Flowers is a rookie and isn't going to be able to pick things up right away. But everyone loves Zay Flowers from what they've seen in the preseason. The Texans' strength is their secondary. Steven Nelson played well last year. A lot of people are expecting more out of Derek Stingley this year. Jalen Petrie is one of the best defensive backs in the NFL. I like that they brought in Shaquille Griffin from Seattle, though I don't know how much he's going to end up playing. Tavir Thomas is out there. Like, the Texans' strength on defense is probably their secondary. Even then, I think that the Ravens have a lot to work with. And I guess you dare Lamar Jackson to throw on you, but I think he's a good passer. But I'm also wondering, okay, well, you're going to have your work cut out for you trying to cover all of these guys. And what do? Do you play like cover 0, straight up man, and turn your back to Lamar Jackson? No, that's a disaster waiting to happen because he can run. I am curious as to how Monken will use Jackson's running ability, but it does seem like they're trying to phase more towards him throwing the football. I think Jackson is very underrated as a passer. I think he gets a lot of disrespect on that front. I think he's got some pretty good touch on his throws. I don't know why it is that people think that he can't throw. I don't know if there's a little bit of, let's be honest, racism involved with that. But I do think Jackson's a very capable passer. I remember watching him at Louisville. I was blown away by when I saw him at Louisville. He's one of my favorite players in the league, and just sucks that he's going up against the Texans week 1. He's fun to watch against other people. So anyway, you're hoping for injuries from the Ravens, and you're hoping the injuries that you have aren't that serious because you're already dealing with a bunch. You need some luck for this game on Sunday. And you know what? Like, I'll eat crow if the Texans win on Sunday. I'll be happy if the Texans win on Sunday. I think people get it twisted that sports talk radio hosts are rooting for failure at all times. No, fuck that. I want to watch a good team. I like football. And I think this team is going to have a lot more of a pulse this year, but I don't think week 1 is where they're going to show it. I think this is going to be a bit of a rough one, and I would encourage you all to not freak out about what you end up seeing on Sunday. I would, if I were you, a gambling person, 9.5-point spread, mybookie.ag, promo code BET975. I would take the Ravens in the points, 9.5. I hope I'm wrong. Anyway, let's read some comments here before we hit the road. N. Fuentes Respecter, Jackson gets the most open receivers due to his running. He should have astronomical passing stats. He's regressed every year since the league got film. That's just wrong. The Greg Roman effect is this. Greg Roman gets a mobile quarterback. Greg Roman and that mobile quarterback do very well early on. Greg Roman does not evolve the offense at all. And then when you factor in that the Ravens did not have capable wide receivers outside of Mark Andrews, I think there's a lot of reasons as to why Lamar Jackson hasn't been dominant as a passer of late. But I think it's there. I really do. What other comments do we have? Doop-a-doop-doop-doop-doop-doop. DJ Dark, you don't have to apologize. I'm looking through the comments section on the right and scrolling up and down. I have no idea half the time what the fuck is going on. Blah, 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 blah. I understand it's supposed to be rainy for part of the game, says Rick Hagewood. All right, maybe not. I don't know. I'm not fucking Hammer and Hank. I'm not gonna make predictions based off the weather. I'm also not a meteorologist. You're not allowed to be. You gotta go to a school to be a meteorologist. It's crazy. DJ Dark says I'm the man. Thank you. Also, N. Fuentes Respecter, I miss you. Where the fuck have you been during my radio show? Anyway, hey guys, appreciate y'all for tuning in. We're gonna try to do this every single weeknight until I inevitably get lazy and don't want to fucking do it anymore, or I want a social life. But hey, we've done 2 episodes in a row. How about fucking that? So, I hope you enjoy the games on Sunday. All the college football games this weekend as well. I am very excited for Sunday, just like you guys. I got my little Patriot shirt on. Please, for the love of God, don't get killed by the Eagles too much. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts if you like to listen to it. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. And you can watch this thing live weeknights, generally after Monday and Thursday Night Football, Sunday Night Football too, which I guess isn't a weeknight. And on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, probably around 6 o'clock. Anyway, so long. Farewell. Have yourselves a wonderful weekend. And you can hear me on the radio tomorrow at 10. Peace.